This is working now? Yeah. All right, good. Perfect. Why don't we, I think we have such an amazing group out here. I thought it would be great to hear about their journey. And Umesh is an amazing entrepreneur who started his journey almost, 18 years back now?
20 years ago.
20 years ago? All right. When you started when you were 10 years old, Umesh. And he's built one of the largest AI enterprise company and has won a lot of awards. I could keep going. I've known Umesh from his early days when he moved to the US. But why don't we have Umesh share about his journey, how he started, what were the challenges, and share some thoughts with the group out here.
So it's great to be here, great to be with this panel. Gary, thank you for having me on this. I was born and raised in New Delhi and did my schooling and early education all in New Delhi. In my undergrad, computer science, it's during my undergrad where I found my co-founder in India. And we did our first startup. Uniphore, this company that I run today, it's an AI company, enterprise AI company. We founded Uniphore in the year 2008. And this was an IIT Madras incubation project. Incubation was, still new to India in the mid-2000s. The VC ecosystem was just fledgling in India. And we partnered with, our professor there to start then what was a conversational AI vision. I can promise you, conversational AI in 2008 wasn't as hot as it is today. There was no OpenAI, there was no GPT. Matter of fact, 2 years after Uniphore was founded, Steve Jobs announced Apple's Siri product. And a year from then, Google announced the Google Voice Assistant. And a lot of us here might remember when Siri first came out, it wasn't that great. So we've, in the course of this company's journey over the last 16 years, we've seen how AI models have evolved. When we first started the company, I remember to get one single English word recognized from a speech-to-text AI model, it used to take us 6 to 7 weeks of iteration for one word. And from that point to where LLMs are today, we've had a front row seat to see what these technologies have evolved into, what these models have evolved into. And in many cases, we're fortunate to have people in Uniphore today who've contributed to make these models what they are today. On the flip side, in these 16 years, we've been building an AI business, which today powers digital transformation for over 1,500 enterprise clients in the world. Little over 750,000 users, which are employees of those companies today, every day are coming to work and using AI agents, co-pilots, automation, etc. But that didn't happen overnight. This is the journey of our 16 years. And in building this company, up until very recently, we had the challenge of explaining both customers and investors that an AI business has some differences to a traditional software or a SaaS business. And the simplistic way to understand the difference is when a customer buys a SaaS or a software product, the expectation is on the first day when the software is ready and configured and all set up, you turn the lights on and it should perform to expectation. In an AI product, the first day that the product's ready to roll and you turn the lights on, that's the day the product starts to learn the context and your company or whatever you're trying to do with it. And it's a very different user journey, it's a very different buyer journey. So to scale Uniphore without any parallels or role models has been a fascinating journey. Last 2 years have been obviously the most exciting, because what we've seen is every single CIO, every single CEO, every single boardroom in the world today is panicking to make moves with AI. And when Uniphore meets them, we tell them that the way we drive digital transformation for you using AI is one of two steps. The first one, if you're very new to the AI journey, you're better off starting with a set of prepackaged AI agents that start to deliver automation, efficiency, that could be in areas like call center or sales or HR or marketing. And it's really important to start showing ROI and business outcomes in today's world. We are no longer in 2023 where just announcing a partnership with Microsoft or Google or OpenAI was enough to say you're an AI company. Now Wall Street expects you to deliver real outcomes. And the second step of the AI journey, once you've got started with a handful of AI agents, is what we call the AI engine room, which is when AI becomes a true architecture, and we think of it as a 4-layer cake. Basically what the enterprise is able to do then is use their own data that over years they might have been accumulating, and that's the new differentiation, and start to fine-tune models and create your own agents, which are very specific to your business. So, we've seen this company, we've seen AI, we've seen the industry grow, and I think there has never been a more exciting time in the last 16 years than I would say we see now.
Thank you, Umesh. Amazing journey. I know we're going to be asking you a lot more questions. So we're going to go through each of the CEOs out here, then we'll open up for Q&A. So get ready for your questions, right? And I'll point at a few people to kind of put them in a tougher spot, okay? Why don't we shift over to Mohit? Mohit, again, a very successful serial entrepreneur, founder of Nutanix. After that, he founded Cohesity, and now still startup, and we're working on our LLM models to see what the hell is he up to right now. And is a deep tech founder, and some amazing degrees, right? So be careful, man, he can read your mind. Mohit, why don't you share your journey, and whatever you can share about your stealth startup. How about if somebody guesses what your stealth startup is? Would you let them invest in the pre-seed?
We'll definitely have a talk.
Okay. All right, Mohit, floor is yours, man.
All right, thank you. So first of all, thanks everyone. Pleasure to be here and pleasure to be in this panel. So I also grew up in India. I think I'll start by, I did my bachelor's in computer science at IIT Delhi. And I graduated in 1995. This was the time when India didn't have that many, technical opportunities. So the normal route for people aspiring to do something bigger in tech was to get a scholarship, come to the US, and that's what I did. So I did my PhD in computer science from Rice University, finished that in 2000. And there I was at a crossroads, right? If you guys know research a little bit, it's basically taking money from someone and building new tech. Well, the startup world is similar. So the crossroads that I was in was whether to go to industry to do the same thing or whether to stay in research. And a very interesting trend was emerging. I mean, at the time, companies like Google and Yahoo were coming up. It was very clear that while the academia or research was the cutting edge, 2000 and before, but it did seem like the new cutting edge is going to be more in industry. And so that was the reason I decided to jump ship and come over to what some people in academia might say is the dark side, right? I came to industry. But I had no clue how to build startups. So I had to, be part of some startups to learn the ropes. So the first startup that I was part of in 2000 was, at the time it was a very hot startup. It was called Zambil. I was there for about 2 years. Kleiner Perkins backed and a whole bunch of hype around it. But when the .com bust happened, it didn't do so well. It was very clear, so I left and I joined another startup that you guys all know. It's Google, right? I was the 600th employee at Google, and that was a phenomenal ride. I ended up working with some of the people we aspire to work with, back in research. Many of them had left research and come to Google. So that's where I truly learned how to build web scale systems. I was part of the Google file system team. So that's where I, A, learned how to build web scale technologies, B, became even more embedded in data and storage and that sort of stuff. So I was there for 5 years, left Google in 2007. again, the goal always was to learn the ropes of building a startup. And Google, while it was great at so many things, the one thing it didn't quite teach, given how big it was, is how to do a startup. So I joined another startup. It was called Acid Data Systems. It was a startup in the data warehousing space. I stayed there for 2 years, and by the end of it, I think I was ready. I knew. And that's when me and my co-founders, we started Nutanix, which was 2009. So that's, I think, about a $15 billion company today. It's in the public markets. So I was there for nearly 4 years, and after that, so that's where, by the way, the tech there was hyperconvergence, which was bringing compute and storage together. That was a problem that I saw in Google, right? Google first tried to put all the compute on one side and storage on the other side, realized it didn't work, it was too expensive, came up with its own crude version of hyperconvergence. So that was really the observation that led me to found Nutanix and solve some of the things that Google did crudely in a much more refined way by using virtualization and stuff. So that was Nutanix. And then after that, Nutanix was in what we call the production space or primary data space. Then I founded my next company, Cohesity, which was in the secondary data space, right, backups and more. And the whole idea was that the data should not just sit there as dumb data. You should do more with it, and you should bring some intelligence to it. So the area eventually became known as data management, and now it's called data management, data security, and soon it's going to be called data management, data security, and data insights because we also brought AI to it. So that was Cohesity. I was there for 10 years, long journey, and now it's we brought in the CEO. I like to joke that both my companies, Nutanix and Cohesity, are run now by ex-VMware COOs. So we have to find a place for Raghu next.
Yeah, exactly. I better find out what your company does.
So since people are so intrigued, especially Gary, about my last company, it's in stealth, so I will not say more. The only thing I will say, especially given the AI bend in this event, look, while AI brings a lot of opportunity, I will also say there's a lot of hype also. There's a lot of AI washing going on. People are just doing AI for the sake of doing AI, right? Even VCs talk about it. I was at Sequoia recently, and one of my ex-board members, he was like, he just hears AI all over the place, and he doesn't believe many of those, 90+% of those opportunities are going to work out. So I've always embrace that. I'm not going to do a technology for the sake of doing a technology. Yes, there is AI in it, but I believe we can actually make a meaningful difference to the world, change the world in a significant way by bringing AI into the mix. But it's not just about AI. That I'll leave you with that.
So you can share the name of the company?
The name of the company is Sci-Fin. Take sci-fi and attach an N to it. That's the name of the company.
Oh, we're getting there.
I mean, he's going to ask 20 questions and soon he'll nail down everything.
No, I remember meeting Mohit for the first time. I think it was in London. HPE was an investor in your Cohesity, right?
That's right, HP, that's right.
I know he was speaking out there. I said, this guy looks like a cool dude, man. And I think it's an amazing journey, what he has done. And I know there'll be a bunch of questions. We'll be coming back to you and double-clicking on it. But let's have Raghu share about his journey. Obviously, you were with VMware for 21 plus years, and most recently CEO. And obviously, with the Broadcom acquisition, I know you had some sleepless nights, right? Hawk is hawk, right? And we'd love to kind of get your perspective on how VMware got to that exit stage, right? Obviously, Dell was involved earlier on. It'll be good to hear. There's a good mix of entrepreneurs, VCs, and corporate execs, right? How was your journey, right? And maybe a message for the entrepreneurs, right? How to work with the corporates, right? And is there a way for them to work with Broadcom now? And I also hear, right, your next journey is about to start, right? We're hearing some rumors out here, maybe Middle East, right? I'll just pause there.
Okay, great. Very happy to be here, and again with this excellent panel. So given your question, I'll go backwards in terms of career chronography, if you will. Yeah, so I joined VMware when it was a tiny company with probably around 20 odd million in revenue. And was fortunate to be part of this journey that took us to $13.5 billion in revenue. And I think when we finished, we were 169 or so in Fortune 500. In the S&P 500, sorry. So it was a hugely successful journey. I think numerous lessons from there that we could be talking all day. But I think the key was, I think to Mohit's point, the company, brilliant founders that did not follow fads, that genuinely looked at a fundamental computer science problem and how to apply it to the real world. In that case, in VMware's case, it was virtualization. But it also turned out that virtualization technology was not just a point technology, it turned out to be a platform. And that gave us the right to, with our customers, to move into a lot of other adjacent application areas, including some of the ones that Mohit ended up being involved in, as well as many others. So the secret to VMware success, if you will, was a foundational technology that was probably 10x better than any other alternative in terms of both value delivered and the fundamental science behind it. But also, it turned out to be a super valuable platform, right? And along the way, we had to beat off a lot of competition like Microsoft and open source and so on and so forth. But these were the two pillars. And then the third pillar, I would say, was the quality of the product. The product was going into the heart of the data center. And it's really hard to deliver products that work virtually all the time in the data center. And once you achieve that status, it's very hard to pull it out. So it's really the fundamental computer science and the engineering that created VMware success at the start. And then using that base to enter into multiple markets. Every market that we went into, we were always looking for, certainly in the early days, could we get a 10x advantage over existing ways of doing it? So those were some of the keys of success.
No, thank you. It's an impressive journey, and we'll have a lot of questions for you. We'll switch over to Amit Walia, who's CEO at Informatica. You've been there for 11 years, last 5 years CEO, and you're really kind of creating a deeper innovation, a startup within a big company. And I know you worked in a bunch of different organizations. It would be great for the team to hear, right, how you're disrupting, right, with the cloud-first strategy, and how you're expanding, and a message for some of the entrepreneurs out here. How do they do business with your organization? It would be great to hear.
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity, Gary, and always good to be here with friends and people I know well. Mohit is a dear friend. I've known Raghu for a while, and good to see Vish here in the room as well. Yeah, a long dear friend and a mentor. Look, my personal journey, I mean, surprise, I grew up in India. I went to IIT Varanasi, IIT BHU back in the days. The best thing that happened to me is I actually met my wife there, so everything else was secondary, which is still the love of my life. Yes, no, but clearly, I'm hoping this goes to her. Mohit knows her very well, so he's going to tell her. You'll be my guarantee, right, Mohit? Anyhow, so, I graduated from IIT. I actually ended up working for a bunch of different companies in India. Actually, to be honest, my best job to date, ironically, was my first job, which was Tata Steel. There's a graduate program, a leadership program they take you for. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I still remember as a 21-year-old, running a shop floor in a steel plant as a management trainee with 1,000 union employees under you, not knowing how to even manage them, has been the best leadership training program I've ever had. So I still have great memories of that. Anyhow, I ended up realizing that I want to do tech, and that was a detour. I actually ended up coming to the US, actually following my wife, who came to here for a master's. So I just literally followed her. And I ended up going to business school. So I took a different route than a bunch of folks here. I ended up going to business school to Northwestern Kellogg. I always wanted to be on the business side of things, and as much as I was on the technology side of things, I wanted to marry that. And I ended up going to McKinsey, which I thought was a great training ground for an engineer like me. Did a bunch of great work. Actually, Raghu, I would tell you that, I worked on the VMware deal for EMC. Just so you know, so back in the days, 2003, I remember that very well, which I think was Joe Tucci's best deal ever, which was best VC deal ever done in Silicon Valley.
Yep.
I remember those days when we were advising and we were working on that deal with Joe, with Diane on this side, so down the memory lane. Clearly, I never wanted to be an advisor, I wanted to be an operator, so I came to the industry side. I worked at Symantec, briefly went to consumer software. I'm an enterprise B2B infrastructure guy, so I came back to Informatica 11 years ago, which has been a great, rewarding journey for me. And briefly, Informatica, it's what we call data management. There's many words for data management. We sit on the layer where we bring data together from many disparate sources, which is a very complicated landscape in any enterprise, a good quality, and get it ready for operational use cases, analytical use cases, mastering data for governance, quality, compliance, many such use cases with, and obviously the Fortune 5,000 being customers, about roughly $1.8 billion revenue, global company. And I think the entrepreneurial part to that was, look, I'm not a startup founder, but I think the one part which was closest to is what I call intrapreneurship. Informatica was a $1 billion revenue company in 2015. To give you a snapshot, I was the head of products that time, and the vision I had, and which I accelerated as I became CEO, was that, look, we're going to leave that behind and we're going to be in this world of digital, a cloud first company. And what it took the company 22 years to build a $1 billion business, which we completely put it on the side. From 2016 till now, as we exit this year, we've built a $1 billion cloud business. So $1 billion business in 8 years, which very few startups can do. So now obviously it's hidden within a large company, and that's all consumption driven. We launched our AI back in 2018. In my case, these are all public things, which allowed us to we are the Switzerland of data and we are the Switzerland of AI. And the scale at which we work, just to give you a sense, is the platform runs 101 trillion transactions a month. So that's crazy volume, and we support, IRS running your tax bills, or NVIDIA basically tracking their GPUs, or Unilever across 96 countries, or Coca-Cola, each can tracking that. So those are the kind of or stress test data that goes from the banks to the regulators. Those are the kind of use cases. So these are really, really mission critical use cases. So if we go down, we hear a lot of grumpy customers right away. And we end up having huge customer sat, 97, 98% retention. The pillars for the company are very similar. Innovate, like Raghu said. In tech, if you don't have a great product, you're going to go nowhere. So innovation is number key. We lead in every Magic Quadrant we compete in. And number two is customer centricity. Look, we serve enterprise customers. They are very finicky. They have very high requirements. You got to make sure they're happy. And then of course, like I think hopefully that's true for every company, we have our own set of values. So that's how the company is, and obviously we've done fantastically well in the new world, and we basically are at tremendous scale, and that's what we are looking to accelerate and grow as we look forward.
Great, Amit. Maybe I'll start in the reverse order. I'll put you on the spot now. You're building an amazing company, and as you rightly said, it's product, right? If you don't have a good product, it doesn't matter how deep your customer ratio is, right? So obviously, earlier this year we saw some serious news, right, where QA became a big issue for one of the companies. I'm not going to take the name, right? So what are the lessons you are learning from them, and how are you buttoning up things at your end? You're a big company right now, and it can happen to anybody, right? So that's one question. Second, right, what's your leadership style, and how do you motivate your team? It's a global team right now. Maybe if you can address it. The similar questions will be coming to all of you with a twist.
I think leadership style, look, when you're running a global company, or by the way, any company, to be honest, to me, ultimately, if we build products, I always say, the IP of every company walks out of the door every day. It's the people that make things or break things. So we build products, or we serve customers on the back of people. So I think, having a set of values is important, but to me it has always been two things. There are many things buried under it. First is empathy. you have to have empathy, which means that you have to be always constantly looking at being in the other person's shoes as you're engaging with them. Look, I was an engineer at one point, and today, while I may be the CEO, but as I engage, I have to have the empathy for what would that individual contributor engineer is thinking in their own shoes, because we obviously have a different perspective as a leader, right? So empathy is an extremely important thing. By the way, it carries over from employees also to your customers and partners. So empathy is an extremely important thing, and empathy doesn't mean, and I think people sometimes get it confused, I always say to my own teams, don't confuse my niceness for my weakness. I can be a very nice human being and I can be very empathetic, but when it comes to running a business, you got to have the right decisions you have to make, and sometimes they're not popular, right? So empathy is important, but actually as long as that comes to the second part, which is transparent communication. If you are communicating and you are honestly communicating, even if it's difficult communication, people get it in the long term. Sometimes we're not in the short term. Look, we had a difficult last year where we did some restructure. And I put myself out there in front of the company, being honest to admit and explain to them what we did and why we did it, whether it was not popular, but it didn't result in actually we had our best year. So I think empathetic leadership and transparent and honest communication builds a foundation for how people judge you, value you, or respect you. That's how I've carried my life forever.
Great. Maybe I'll come to you, Umesh, right now. You are an AI first company, and two questions for you. Obviously, responsible AI, right? If you talk to a lot of these kids, and I have 3 daughters, my oldest one has her own startup. One day she calls, Dad, the world is going to end, AI is going to take over. I said, just relax, right? There are a lot of guardrails which are there. So would love to understand, right? Because this is a question probably coming to you. You have a global footprint. You're meeting with customers every day or talking to them, right? Using AI responsibly is a big topic, and there's going to be a lot more scrutiny and aspects which government is going to put around. Second piece, right? You are one of the rare late-stage startups. You've been acquiring a lot of companies. Okay, you know what your strengths are, and how do you surround yourself? It's like even as a leader, right? You know who you are and who do you need around you, and you're taking the same philosophy of adding companies, right? And the rumor is you're about to pick up 2 other companies. I don't know how much you can talk about it, but my LLM is telling something out there. Would love to hear about both those things.
If Mohit discloses startup, I'll talk about my position. But let's talk about responsible.
Disclose the name.
Let's talk about responsible AI. That's a key topic. And by the way, in the enterprise space, every single customer that we're selling to, whether it's US or Europe, this is something that comes up several times in a given meeting. More so in Europe, I would say, but even in America. And why is that? It's not hard to understand. Look, even before LLMs happened, Air Canada, in a public lawsuit, lost a court hearing to one of its customers. The customers took Air Canada to a court of law saying your chatbot was, gave an answer which was biased against me. And the judge ruled against Air Canada, not against the provider of the chatbot or the provider of the AI model, but against Air Canada. Then, sometime last year, there was a public company that announced its earnings with 1 extra zero, and that zero remained in the public domain for 8 minutes. And they came back and very quickly said, "Mea culpa, there was a mistake in our earnings." The very next day, the SEC chair, Gary Gensler, was on CNBC. And he was asked, what is the SEC stance on this? Today it was a human error. Tomorrow LLMs will be publishing earnings of these companies. Companies can come out and say, we are sorry, it was the LLM that made a mistake. And his answer was once again very crystal clear. He said, as far as we are concerned in SEC, it's the company's responsibility to put out nothing but accurate information. We don't care which method, which technology, whether you use human beings or models and so on and so forth. So, therefore, responsible AI, especially in the enterprise world, is an extremely important topic, and every C-suite executive now understands this. That the more AI comes into their business, the more liabilities that they're creating, and they have to have tools, process, systems to protect them. So once again, what does Silicon Valley do? When you identify a problem, you start to innovate for solutions. So now in the last few months, we've heard a lot about, advancements in technical terms which are called evidence management or fact checking. And these are parts of now AI pipelines, which are developed tools for CIOs to say, look, I'm going to articulate some corporate guardrails for my company. Let's say I'm a telecom company. Here are things that I want any AI model to not do. Here are things I will allow it to do. And now there are tools or pipelines to configure them and make sure no LLM, you can use a proprietary model, open source model, no LLM breaches that boundary for your company. And by the way, if ever challenged in a court of law, you have this dashboard which says, look, this was my fact-checking engine. And it was making sure it was working along with my compliance. So, but ultimately, the way I explain this to anybody is think of the new architecture for AI in an enterprise. Doesn't matter if it's Uniphore or somebody else. I call it a 4-layered cake. Right? It's not hard to understand. The bottommost layer of the cake is where the data sits, the data lake, data storage, data management. That's where the enterprise is bringing all of its data assets, getting it primed and ready for AI. The layer right above is now the knowledge lake. All right, now, people are using RAG or retrieval augmented generation or enterprise search to convert the data that enterprise has into a searchable format. And why convert it into a searchable format? Because that's the only thing that LLMs can learn from. Now you feed it to anybody's LLM, a proprietary LLM from your hyperscaler or an open source LLM, and you start to fine tune those LLMs for your company's purposes and tasks. But you end up, in a scenario where over years there might be hundreds of these SLMs or LLMs fine-tuned by the company. So the layer right above now is the model lake. So you have data lake, knowledge lake, model lake. You have multiple fine-tuned LLMs, and you now need to orchestrate or traffic manage them. And the final layer on top is what Mark Benioff is calling AI agents or AI apps, or what used to be SaaS applications in the past. But think of this 4-layered cake. And it's very important for each enterprise to not think of AI as a POC that let me do something in call center and show that I can have efficiencies, because that's where the risk of governance, responsible AI, guardrails not being in place can come through. If people think of this as an architecture play, then we've come a long ways even since the first LLM came about in 2018. And there are several ways emerging to put controls over these layers.
Okay, great. No, thank you, Umesh. So Mohit, question for you. You're a deep technical founder. Big issue, right, for entrepreneurs, right, when they're building the product, okay? When is that GA coming out? When is that early release? How they're working with the early co-innovation customers. And the big issue, quality becomes a big issue. We learn later on, right? And then you get the beating from the customers. You're freaking using me as a QA team out here. So having built to companies and other startups now, and you're still startup, right? What would be your message to the folks, and even for the corporate execs, right? Because when they start using new products, they have their own process of QA and everything before they put the product in the mainstream. To me, that's a very big issue, and people undermine that like no tomorrow. Would love to hear your perspective. And Raghu, maybe you can add some color to that too.
Yeah, so you're asking me about the process I follow for managing
process that? And what is the best, right? To me, I think this is, you hear, right, from the CXO friends when they're pulling their hair or getting gray hair.
So I think the question is, there's a tension between the velocity and how fast you can roll out something and the quality, and how do you manage that? So great question. It doesn't just apply to startups. It also applies to any new product that you roll out from an existing company. And so I've, first of all, learned things the hard way, but we came up with something that actually I will put my reputation down. It actually just works, and I advise a lot of founders, and that's the model. So let me talk about that. So what we do is, I believe in, first of all, writing down the requirements. Right? Usually what people do, and it's a mistake, people will write down, maybe they'll build a design doc and write down the goals, and we all know that design docs get stale and God knows whether the developers who actually implemented the product even followed the design doc or not. So that's not what we do. That's not what I advise. What I advise is you take the requirements. I don't like calling them goals. Goals are best effort. Requirements are must have. Take the requirements, put them separately outside of your design docs. And then, the product management team in collaboration with the architects and other senior people in the company, we decide which of the requirements are going to be satisfied in the version 1 of the product. Let's call it the minimum lovable product. I don't like MVP. Minimum viable is a very fuzzy term. Minimum lovable is something that the customers will actually love. So what's going to come out, what are the requirements that are going to be satisfied in that MLP or version 1 of the product? And what is going to come in V2, V3, that sort of stuff. And look, we all know that because of velocity, sometimes we have to cut corners. When we track the requirements explicitly, right, as a first-class citizen, we precisely know which requirements were missed, so that they can be, implemented and rolled out soon after. If you don't do this, you will find through bugs filed by customers and the shouting and screaming that customers will heap at you, will hurl at you. You'll find out only then what was missed. So what I require is, again, the summary is, we have something called a requirement scorecard. It's a glorified spreadsheet where you list down all the requirements, high level and low level. You come to an agreement what's going to be rolled out in version 1 of the product and further versions. And then I need sign-offs from the various individuals, from the QA people, from the tech leads, from the managers. I need at least 3 sign-offs that this has been rolled out. Because if it turns out that it was not, the requirement was not met, then how come they signed off on that, right? So there's a checks and balances system. So as soon as I introduced this, we actually not only got the velocity, but also the quality. So that's kind of how I've done it.
So let me ask you this, at Nutanix and Cohesity, right? How was the relationship with your head of product management or VP engineering, right? Because that's where all these elements converge, right? And that's an important thing for any startup or even, right, bigger companies as they're rolling out new products, right? Requirements are coming from customers. Your product manager has to be not only content subject matter expert, but ideally a technical product manager who can speak the language of the engineering team, right? How was that for you?
Yeah, great question. So, this goes back to also another aspect of, you can call it my playbook or the leadership style. I run it very collaboratively. So here is another mistake that people do. They think of the product management people as the CEOs of the product. I think that's, in my mind, it's a big mistake. No one person can be the CEO of the product. It's a collaborative thing. So the product managers can bring the requirements. They can talk to customers and bring those requirements. But then they need to sit collaboratively with other people in the company, right? Architects, managers, and perhaps other people to collaboratively decide. It's basically a disagree and commit. That's the key word. On what the actual requirements are going to be and which ones are going to be rolled out in version 1 and future versions, right? When you do that, it's not a lone wolf. The company is not held at ransom with the judgment of one person, right? That's the big mistake that people do. There's one person doing it. If the person does it well, okay, everything is good. If the person doesn't do it well, the company suffers. When you do it collaboratively and you hire smart people, more often than not, it's going to be right. And even if it's slightly wrong, you can collaboratively then fix it later on, right? So it becomes very efficient.
Perfect. So Raghu, were you a user of Nutanix or Cohesity at VMware? How was when you got their first product release, right? Give your perspective. You can poke Mohit now.
I hope you know we competed with Nutanix.
I know. That's the reason I say.
But I have to get credit, at least to the early Nutanix product, was really a good product. And in fact, we probably competed against half a dozen, maybe even a dozen products over my time at VMware in that category, including from giants like Microsoft, as well as open source and Red Hat, etc. I think Nutanix was the only one that made the cut, and it's seen in its results. So.
But I'll just say.
The other thing I should say, again, kudos to, I was not a direct user of Cohesity, but Cohesity was used with pretty much any significant VMware customer for their secondary data management. And they always had very, very, very positive things to say about not just the product, but the quality of the product as well.
I think I'm just going to add to that. I totally agree with where Mohit was going. I think having built completely new products within the company, I think I'll add just two things to what Mohit you were saying is, one is I think, and this applies, I think applies even to a startup as much as to a large company, maybe more to a large company. People sometimes outsource the problem to the head of product management or a PM or to, no. I mean, when you are building something new, a startup, the first product is the company, and even for an existing company, a new product, I think not only everybody, senior people have to be involved. When I was a chief product officer of the company, by the way, even as I'm CEO, I mean, some of the bigger bets we make, we really get involved, hands sit down together. Because you can't have, and this is no offense to an individual PM or engineer, because their perspective may only be the perspective they have. So I think we make the mistake of saying, it's your product, you go figure it out. So it's collaborative, and more people in the early days have to be involved from senior levels down so that it gets the right setup. Once it has the right setup, it can get its own velocity. And second one that has worked well, I've seen, is that, look, every large customer is very smart in enterprise. If it's a startup or even it's a new company, existing company bringing a new product, they all know V1s are V1s. I think we think that we are selling them something great. They, even if the V1 is good, they'll discount it by 50%. What I've learned over the course of time is that bring some of the large customers into the fold and be very open with them at where you are and make them part of your design cycle. Then they trust you more versus I'll file 100 bugs and then I will tell you. They don't like that. No enterprise company wants to use their expensive resources to give you your product feature. So I think those are incremental things that have worked well for us.
Yeah, what I would also, a couple of observations on what you were asking. Firstly, the CEO is the CEO of the product. It's not the product manager that's the CEO of the product. Right? And if you look at any company that has a great product portfolio, the CEO is deeply, deeply, deeply involved. Whether it's a small or a large company, it does not matter. So that's observation number one. Observation number two is when you're building these new products, you got to be careful about who are the early customers that are willing to take your early product. The early customers have three characteristics, I would say. One is they actually want this problem solved really badly, right? So it's worth their time to invest in checking out if this product does the job, right? And second is they are tolerant of failures. And because they want the problem solved so badly. And thirdly, to Amit's point, they can be an effective core designer. So you can't give your product to somebody that does not satisfy these characteristics. So no matter what we do, what we say, early products are going to be buggy. That is the nature of the process. But you got to select the customers, and of course you got to be responsive enough to improve the product very rapidly. So if you do those, then I think you have a much better shot at getting to graduating the product.
What Raghu was saying, one of the first, or rather the biggest customer who was testing Cohesity is actually Broadcom.
Yeah, there you go.
They eventually became customers. The guy who was testing our product actually liked us so much they joined us. So that was fun.
No, I agree on that front. I think beyond a design customer, the team which you're working is very critical, because the larger the corporation gets, you can have some challenges. But Umesh, maybe you can add some color, right? As you have built the company, you are now, cranking up your revenue, right? And you are an amazing CEO who's cranking things up, and you are acquiring companies as well. How those things are getting integrated so there is no issue with the product integrations and the quality, and maybe add some color to that, and then I'll open it up to the audience for Q&A.
Yeah, so, look, I agree with everything that was said about early product releases or getting customers as co-development partners and things like that. So I won't go there. I think there's a flip side of this coin from a product management standpoint that I deeply, think about and worry about in my company. So Battery Ventures does this, every year with Cloud 100 conference in New York. And every year they put out a set of slides of the trends they see. And 2 years ago, I remember Neeraj from Battery put out this chart, which was very telling. And it said that all publicly listed software businesses in US, 80% of new things that they developed in the last year had no customers. 80%. And he estimated the drainage on R&D of those publicly traded companies was about $7 or $8 billion. So the flip side of this coin is, of course, in a new product, if it's company changing or company defining, CEOs involved, senior leaders are involved, etc. But when it's a run of the mill, when it's day to day, when you're competing in a successful product, how do you keep that rigor in product management that they have enough of an insight of what's happening in the market? I mean, we all saw what happened with LLM. I think the world is still grappling to wrap their arms around. To me, it's the death of SaaS. And that's a very significant move that I find it hard to believe that, I have equipped my product managers enough for them to have picked this up early. They will eventually get there. When enough customers say we are, shifting away from traditional package SaaS to AI agents and small language models. Which means that in that interim, it's likely that the product management and engineering pipeline is continuing to build things which very quickly will find no takers. Right? So the flip side of this coin is for big products, for significant products, of course everyone is involved, but how do you keep that rigor? On integration and acquisitions, I think, our number 1, 2, and 3 reason to look for acquisitions is there is a market opportunity, there is a product gap that we have, and there is a time to market advantage that we can kill with an acquisition. So it has to start there. That there is a product or a technology capability that we're looking to solve because it unlocks something for us, which means by definition we'll never be acquiring an overlapping company. We'll never be acquiring a company where we already have technology or product. In this scenario, things become much easier. The acquired asset almost has no customers. If pre-revenue, it's a great team, great technology. We just have to assess, is the architecture compatible to ours? If it's not, then it might be a great product, great solution. We won't touch it. Now, if the company has customers and revenue, you have to take a scalpel and see, is the go-to-market motion similar to yours? We are an enterprise-focused business. We cannot acquire a mid-market or an SMB-focused GTM because the first thing we'll be doing on day one is churning those customers. And that's a mess, which also means that the product was built for a certain type of persona which doesn't match ours. We do all of this and then we pay attention to, is there a culture fit in the teams? And once again, there's no right or wrong. Oracle, Netflix, Cisco, each company in history has had their own culture. I'm sure companies for each of my panelists have their own culture. And culture comes down from leadership. So we have to assess that, is there a culture fit or not? And once again, I might have found the best product with GTM overlapping and everything else, but if the culture fit is not there, we don't make the move. So it's a very rigorous process. If we really find something that's so compatible and is solving something which gives us a time to market advantage, then, acquisition is the easier part. You're using some currency, you're, making it worthwhile for every party involved, your shareholders, the other side shareholders. But the harder part is integrating it and how quickly you unlock the potential. So for us, some, grounding principles. The first acquisition we did, the CEO of that company, the founder CEO, her name is Maria. She's still in the company. This was 6 years ago. So we made a Maria rule in tribute to the first founder that we were acquiring. And we said in the first 12 months, any people decision on their side, keeping, leaving, moving, Maria will have a 51% veto until the team fully comes in. So that you start to build trust with the incoming team and the founder. On day one, the asset becomes Uniphore. It comes on uniphore.com. We shut down the website. We shut down their IT system. It becomes one team. And in 2 quarters, we want go-to-market synergy to unlock. So cross-selling and upselling of existing customers. So sales teams get 2 quarters to train each other on each other's products. Until then, there's an overlay kind of structure. So a lot of these playbooks that, we've also learned from people ahead of our time. Cisco was a great acquirer for a long period of time. Many others have done this. And then we found the right recipe that works for the Uniphore business. But it's really about unlocking a product synergy that gives us a time to market advantage.
So can you give the right recipe for special teams for 49ers, man?
I wish I could do that. I'll make a lot of money if I could do that.
Okay, we'll open it up for Q&A before I go into the lightning round and closing comments. Go ahead, sir. Is there a microphone we can get it out? All right, we'll get your steps in, man, today.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. K.R.S. Murthy. I'm in AI. I've been chairing AI conferences, about 45 of them, 46 in December, 3-day conferences. That's my background. And I'm in private equity. I'm doing acquisition and roll-up, in addition to what you all mentioned. And I have done this before in other industries as well. And what are your expert comments? And already one of them talked about it. That's imminent, according to me, because you cannot have too many companies trying to do the same thing. It's better to roll up and build a very large company. Could be formidable or further go big public level kind of a thing as well. Thank you.
Sure. Guys, don't be shy. We'll have to get some caffeine in out here. Okay, right there.
First of all, thank you so much. It was such an insightful panel. Gabby, great questions. I'm Upasna Sharma. I'm a lawyer turned early stage venture capitalist. I have a question for all of you. You are all tech entrepreneurs, and pushing boundaries of possibilities is that what you do. But we are also in uncharted territories right now because the way AI and data is changing how we do business is unprecedented. Now in these times, how will you tell someone to keep a balance between the need of advancing technologies, but at the same time making sure user data and trust is maintained? Privacy of user data and trust is maintained.
All right, anybody wants to?
First of all, I couldn't agree more. I think we're in the very early days. I think the most important thing, and I've said that many times, and we're a data company. We basically sit in the middle of data. We basically manage customers' data to basically take AI and convert it to some value. Responsible, ethical, and trusted AI. It's a trisection of three things. I'm sure there are words for everybody, but these are very important. And I don't think enterprise customers, by the way, consumers aside, I'll only talk about enterprise customers because we sell to them. I don't think they'll move forward without that. By the way, there's a lot of AI hype. Mohit said it very well. Crazy hype going on. People are confusing use of AI versus talk of AI. It's a classic Gartner hype cycle. It's the peak of the hype, like the .com. Enterprise customers are not using AI in production at all. You can take a bunch of free data available on the internet, run it through OpenAI, and you can see what it can do for you. That's all fine. But I am not, and a lot of pilots are running, but nobody is saying, oh my gosh, I'm running this whole customer sat workflow without the human intervention and let it run through OpenAI. That's not happening. So I think as much as we sit here and we can talk, so without those things happening, no enterprise will move forward, because I've said this, we are one lawsuit away. We are one big lawsuit away from everybody running to the hill. So all of those things are paramount. So by the way, when we talk to customers, they ask us and we talk about the way we secure data, mass data, keep it, preserve it, country, location, hot, blah, blah, blah. There's tons of that stuff. So productionizing AI for enterprises will require that. JP Morgans of the world are not going to let you do anything barring non-critical data they can run on and assimilate. So absolutely, without that, no company will be successfully selling an AI.
Yeah, I might probably have a slightly contrarian take to what is your question. To me, the term responsible AI or ethical AI it doesn't compute for me, right? AI is a very specific set of technologies, right? Things like responsible, ethical, etc. are subjective terms, and you measure those things in terms of the outcomes. So when you talk about responsive AI, I think the right way to think about it is what is the outcome that is enabled? Is that responsible and is that ethical, etc., etc. I think that's the way you should think about it. And that is not just in the hands of the technologist building it, it's in the hands of whoever the technologist is building it for. So it's not a unilateral thing to say I can do responsible AI. That's, I would say, point number one. And point number two, again, the terms responsible and ethical depend upon the communities you are in, the countries you are in, the legal context, the regulatory context, etc., etc. So I would say it's a very, very loosely defined statement that you can't, as a technologist, you can't go out and really solve it. What you have to say is what are the outcomes that, the intended outcome with this particular application of AI, and is that ethical or not ethical, right? So I would say it's highly situation dependent, it's highly user dependent. The last thing I would say about AI, unlike other data management and infrastructure and any other category you're thinking about, AI models communicate not just information, they communicate values, right? What a LLM built in the West says about 9/11 would be very different than what an LLM built in some other country would say about 9/11 or about some other practices somewhere, or what an LLM here says about China would be very different about what an LLM in China says about China. So things like responsible, ethical, etc. are going to be very, very context dependent and very, very culture dependent. And as technologists, we can build these language models and other AI constructs, but those are at the end of the day what the constructs are. How they're used depends upon what their surface, depends upon what they're trained with, and how they're used depends upon what outcome is it put to. And those are topics for larger audiences than just the pure technologists.
Thank you guys. I know we got 7 minutes. I want to make it a little bit more lighter, personal, and come to know you, for people to know you, right? I know, Amit, you are from Lucknow, right? So where we can get the best kebabs out here, man, in the Bay Area. Or we come to your house to eat some of the best kebabs. What's your favorite restaurant in the Bay Area?
Well, I heard you have a great restaurant, so barring your restaurant, it's my own kitchen. I love cooking and I love enjoy home food. I think I travel so much, so to be honest, I love enjoying food in my own home.
So what's your address? Dinner is at your house today?
Well...
Okay. Raghu, you're from Chennai, right? What's your favorite restaurant out here? South Indian restaurant?
Well, he took away the two best answers, I would say. The one that I like the most these days is Copra in the city.
Copra, okay. Nice. Mohit, you were born in Chandigarh, right? When you were born, did you see that Dara Singh and King Kong fight out there? Did you go for that? I was there for that fight, man. What's your favorite restaurant and your favorite food?
It's Amit's kitchen. Amit is indeed a great cook, and whenever I go to his house, it's actually a treat. So I need to go there more often. But also, like outside of Amit's kitchen, I like Eton in Hadod.
Okay, Aisha is going to be happy today, huh?
Oprah anytime.
All right. Umesh, tum Delhi ke bande ho, right? Bunk, you went to DPS, right? Which school did you go to?
DPS Arkipura.
And did you go bunk and eat noodles out there at the Tibetan? Or what was your favorite place in Delhi and out
They
here
are
now?
still as tasty. Each time I go to Delhi, I still have those Chinese vans outside my school.
Cool. And your favorite place out here?
So, I think, look, as all of us travel around the world, for me, the best Indian food is in London.
It's true.
And I keep waiting and craving for the day that some of those restaurants find their way to the Bay Area. Gary, you need to help us with that.
All right.
So whether it's Gymkhana or, any of those.
Well, I have the answer, man. Amit's kitchen.
Amit's kitchen. All right.
Very good. Or your favorite travel destination where you go to unwind?
So if it's in the US and it's, a long weekend at Santa Barbara, that's where me and my family like to go and unwind. We like the beach, we like the vibe. If it's international, it's London.
What?
It's hands down Mexico. Cabo and the areas around that, hands down. It's just 2 hours away. It's, I think Mexico, the level of service is unparalleled. You don't find that in the US.
You take your dogs with you?
Absolutely, I do.
All three of them?
All three of them.
All right, cool. Raghu?
Big Island.
Big Island? Yeah, Big Island, there's some amazing golf courses. I don't know if you golf or not. Nana is one of the best golf courses out there. Amit, yours?
I think I'll come to the one that we enjoy the most, but recently it was on our list. We cancelled a couple of times. We went to Banff, and we love outdoors. We love outdoors, whether it's the ocean or the mountains. It's just pristine. It's on my list to go back many times. But we've had many memories and many fond memories, and we love the beach. So Maui is our absolute favorite. It's so sad what's happened there, absolutely tragic. So my goal is to keep going there and encourage all of you to go there to make sure that island recovers. I just love Maui.
What's your favorite movie?
Say that again?
Favorite movie?
Movie. That is such a hard one. We had that discussion once in our friend group also, and we would debate it. That is such a hard one because, my God, how do you pick your best movie? Really, so hard. I mean, I won't say it's my best, but amongst the top 10, I'll put it out there. I recently went and saw the music show Interstellar. I am a big Chris Nolan fan, and obviously Interstellar is one of my top 10.
Raghu?
I'm old-fashioned Godfather.
Godfather. All right. Which part? 1, 2, or 3?
1 and 2.
Okay, 1 and 2. All right.
So I'll give 2. On the Bollywood side, it's
So
Sholay.
my alarm is going. Our time is about to come up. Go ahead.
On the Bollywood side, it's Sholay. And on the Hollywood side, it's actually Godfather 2.
Okay. And how about you?
So pick any Marvel movie, Iron Man, Avengers, one of those.
It's so funny, right? I've got 3 daughters, 17-year-old. We were eating dinner, and I said, "What do you think about these lightning questions?" I said, "What do you think was Dad's favorite movie?" Dad, I know that. I said, "What one?" Rocky. Okay, a superpower you wish you had for a day to make a big change.
I constantly tell my admin, can we manufacture more time, more hours in the day? So I wish there was a way to do it.
What?
I would say ability to read a lot more than what I usually can manage.
And reading is a big hobby of yours, right? Yeah. Go ahead.
Be Steph Curry for a day.
That's a cool one. I really like that. I mean, I think good ones. I just add maybe a different one is I wish there's so much to experience in the world and we have such little time. I feel like I wish the day was infinitely longer and I just didn't sleep and I could experience things.
From my perspective, right, if I had the superpower, and this is something you'll be hearing a lot more from me, I think mental health is a big issue, right? If I was able to solve that, and I think it's a big issue which we got to really tackle at the school level, and it's a global problem, so that's something I would. Okay, last question, your favorite app, non-work related? Not TikTok, huh?
The weather app. I use it quite often to check where I'm going, what's the weather, the weather app.
I think it would be Obsidian.
For me, it's I'll cheat and say 2: Character AI and Perplexity.
Music, Apple Music. I just can't live without music.
So I didn't realize Amit and Umesh are big into music. If we had time, we could have started a karaoke out here with both of you. All right, maybe next time in the evening hours. So let's start wrapping up, right? Literally take a minute since we are running out of time. Where do you see, what you will be most proud of a decade from now? And any closing comment? Literally 60 seconds, you're on the clock now.
60 seconds, very quickly. Look, the benefit of having 4 CEOs plus Gary on the stage, if we all say things and don't disagree with each other and don't give you diverse opinions, we haven't done our job. So I'm going to take a contrarian view first and then say, next 10 years, what will I be proud of? If any of us in this audience is going to walk away thinking AI is not going to change the way enterprise do business, at your peril. If any of you think it's not already happening, at your peril. If you think the largest bank and the largest telco is not already putting it in production, at your peril. It's happening now. The train has left the station. There will be bumps along the way. Nobody's saying it's a straight line up, but that genie cannot be put back in the bottle. So for me, the next 10 years, I think deeply about this. I don't think we'll remember this time in history to talk about, who built the best product, the best AI model, the best companies and things like that. We're all busy doing that anyways. But this is our opportunity, each one of us, of what we are doing in our spheres of influence and how we use AI to shape our world, our society, our lives for the next generation, because that's the generation which will get massively impacted by AI and everything. So that's something I'll be proud of if we can do a good job with that.
It's a tough one. I would say, look, I think humans even now are fighting with each other too much. There's too much friction. They're fighting with nature too much. I think I would like to see responsible tech to solve some of this, right? Solve some of that infighting, solve some of the way we use nature, solve some of the climate change problems. That would be the real responsible stuff for me. That will make me happy.
I'll make a couple of remarks. One is, I always measure success in terms of the impact you can have on others, whether customers, employees, investors, whatever. Now, 10 years is a very, very long time. I would say I would be most proud of is the measure of impact that I fortunate enough to have had, but continue to have on enabling others. I would say that's how I would probably measure it. And on the AI topic, absolutely. I mean, we're going to be living in the time of the fastest change ever. My big concern would be if we thought digital divide was a problem, the AI divide is going to be an even more massive problem. 90% of the GPUs today are in China or in the US. And the transformative effects that we all see, are starting to see, are not going to impact the rest of the world. And so that's where I would like to see more advancement.
Amit?
Nothing to do with tech. I think if I have to look 10 years out, I think if I can look back and feel like I've been a great son, a great husband, and a great father, I would be a very proud man.
Thank you guys. Please join me in thanking these 4 amazing leaders for joining us. I know we could go all day, but Amit has to go cook now. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it.